Now, I didn't know it in my 30s, but decisions I made back then have cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars and early financial independence. Now, I'm well on my way at the age of 50, feeling confident and empowered. But if I started some things in my 30s, I would have got there 15 or 20 years earlier. Our family life would have been much different and much less struggles over the years. So, what are the four big things that I messed up on? And more importantly, how can you avoid the same mistakes? Hi, my name is Rob. And just 3 years ago, I decided to stop being a consumer and started building wealth for me and my family for financial independence. So, here are the four big mistakes that I made that you can avoid. And the last one is one we can all be doing right now. But first, I want to start with the easiest way that anybody can get rich without even trying. Number one, I didn't invest. Now, I started working a full-time job at the age of 20, and I didn't stop working full-time until I moved to Canada in 2007. Now, in those 14 years of living and working in London, I had a good salary from job to job, and I didn't save a single dollar. Now, in 14 years, I estimate I earned over $600,000, and I put none of it into savings, into investment, or even into a property. Every dollar was spent on going out, partying, vacations, and lots of stuff. Consumer products. Like most of my friends the same age, I worked for money and I used it to buy everything that I wanted. It was instant gratification. Now, at the time, I was having a blast, like most people my age. Looking back now, it was a wasted opportunity to build wealth with the most valuable commodity that I had, time. If I listened to my parents and saved just 5% of my salary, put it into an S&P 500 and let it mature over 20 years, I would have a life-changing amount. I wouldn't even need to do anything. It's a set and forget strategy. The amount would have been small enough to not really make an impact on my life, but over time it would have compounded into a huge amount. Those small contributions would have duplicated and compounded year after year, with interest growing on top of interest, and all happening in the background while I continue living with 95% of my salary. Now, these days, we invest a minimum of 15% of our salary for the future, but back then, 5% building over 30 years, with an average return of 10%, would have amassed $400,000. That's almost $500,000 from just 5% of your salary, building in the background while you continue with your life. And if you doubled your contribution to just 10%, that would be over $800,000 over the same period. And that's without increasing your contributions as your salary grew. That is a life-changing retirement level amount. So by not investing in my early years, I've lost an amazing opportunity to grow wealth the easy way. That's not a get-rich-quick route, and it's certainly not an exciting method. But based on 100 years of historical evidence, it's about as guaranteed as it gets. Investing in low-cost, low-risk ETFs over a period of time will not only allow your money to escape the ravages of inflation, it will grow you a nest egg that you and your family can rely on when you need it. And for your retirement, it can be drawn down to support your lifestyle while the principal continues to grow. And the more lifestyle you want, the more contributions you can make. We've been investing for 3 years now, mostly our favorite ETFs, but not investing in my 30s or at least getting started was a huge mistake. I spent all my money being a consumer and on instant gratification, and it led me nowhere. And that leads me nicely to the second big mistake I made in my 30s, one that held me a prisoner for years and it didn't need to. Number two, I didn't tackle debt. So I immigrated to Canada in my early 30s, and soon after arriving, I started my renovation business. After some initial growth, I turned the business into a corporation and invested in some new tools and got my first truck loan. As the business grew and I took on staff, we started feeling successful. We got a bigger house, we got nicer cars, and we started relying on services. And with access to that kind of money for the first time of our lives, and all the extra spending, we effectively became middle-class consumers. We had car loans, a large mortgage, credit cards, and an equity line of credit. Now, each one of those was subject to interest, some worse than others, but instead of paying it off each month, we effectively stretched it out and became more indebted. Credit cards had a continuous revolving balance, and we stretched out car loans for years. And our home equity line of credit, or HELOC, got bigger and bigger, and so did the interest payments on it. Effectively, our strategy was backwards, continuing spending money that we didn't have on things that we didn't need. So the advice to myself in my 30s is to have a car loan, clear it. Maybe do some overtime pay and double the payments. Or better yet, don't get a car loan at all. As for credit cards, the interest payments on those can be the worst, sometimes over 20%. And if your balance is being carried over from month to month, you're paying interest on top of interest. Instead of being a consumer, we should have paid down the car loan, perhaps pay some extra payments on our mortgage, and certainly clear the credit cards. The interest building up on the credit cards each month was hundreds of dollars a month, equating to $8,000 a year. That is just interest. Factor in the car loans, the mortgage payment and other interest charges. Our consumer debt was not only taking all our money, the debt continued to build each month and each year as we fell behind. And that is the consumer trap that we found ourselves in. People choose to continue a broke lifestyle and being a consumer rather than paying down their debt and practicing delayed gratification. And in our 30s and 40s, we continued in this trap for years, making the banks and the credit cards rich. When we eventually got financially literate enough to realize what we were doing, I estimate we spent over $200,000 on interest payments. Now that is a staggering amount that could easily be avoided if we just decided to live below our means and not being heavy consumers. That money alone, if invested, instead of being paid to the banks and credit cards as interest, would have changed our lives. The consumer trap is an easy one to fall into, but once you're down there, it can be very hard to get out. It was a huge mistake to make, but one we got ourselves out of with determination and hard work. We developed our mindset to take charge, and we learned from our mistakes. Now, learning from our mistakes was not always the case, as I will explain in my third biggest mistake of my 30s. Life in your 30s for some is direction, strength of character, confidence, and taking risks. Being in the relentless pursuit of success, and leading by example, providing inspiration to others. For many others, like myself, my 30s were unconfident, muddling, and lacking direction, going with the flow and hoping for the best. Trying to avoid making mistakes and worrying what people thought of me. And this was a big issue. And because I chose to play it safe, I missed opportunity after opportunity to progress in life and to build something. Effectively, I stayed in my comfort safe zone. And what I realized years later is that we all have to take risk. Risk in business, in jobs, in family life, and in excelling ourselves. There's no point avoiding it. Risk is a part of life. And as we take risk and grow our mindset, we gain experience and confidence. In exactly the same way we do strength training in the gym and build up our muscles, exposing ourselves to risk builds up our tolerance and our confidence. Will we make mistakes? Absolutely. We have to. Sometimes we'll get knocked down to the ground and wonder how we're going to get up. That's how we build character, discipline, and determination. To excel and achieve anything in life, we need to learn the lessons, learn to get up, dust off, and move forward. Failure is a big part of success, and anybody successful today will tell you they had to get through many failures to get where they are. So my wish, in my 30s, is that I took risk and developed my appetite for success. I wish I developed a growth mindset and not stayed in my comfort zone. Looking back, it was a decade of wasted opportunity and what ifs. Now don't get me wrong, I'm very grateful for all my blessings and I've found my happiness. But taking it easy in my 30s was a big mistake. And it's certainly one I'm paying for in my 50s. If you're watching this video and in your 30s, you can avoid this disappointment by making your 30s count. Lay the groundwork now to have an amazing 40s, 50s and beyond. Now it's important to have fun, but take calculated risk to improve your lifestyle and your mindset. But before you do that, here's my fourth biggest mistake of my 30s and possibly the worst one. Number 4, not using my free time. Now my 30s were a blur, and it wasn't because I was working non-stop. We just moved to Canada with our 1-year-old. I just started my business and we were having fun. And I would argue a little too much fun. In reflection, looking back, outside of working hours, we were partying, going out and enjoying ourselves and watching lots of TV. At the end of the day, I'd have a glass of wine or a few beers to relax. And at the weekends, we spent time going out and getting over a hangover. I didn't go to the gym much, and I spent zero time thinking about my financial future. That was years away. My 30s were largely unproductive and wasteful. Drinking so much alcohol during the week made me unproductive, lazy, and irritable. I would rush home from work and open a beer less than 5 minutes after walking through the door. And that was it for the night. At best, I would help with dinner and do cleanup. At worst, I'd plonk myself down in front of the TV and be there for hours. No developing my business, no chasing leads for a new project, and no side hustle. We had no real plan for the future. We certainly had no financial plan, and we were going nowhere pretty fast. Now I could have earmarked 2 or 3 evenings a week to develop a side business or a side income. I could have joined the gym and enjoyed building my physical strength and my mental health. I could even develop my business bigger and faster. There was so much opportunity that I could have done in my 30s that I took no advantage of. I just wasted a lot of time being a consumer and a little bit lazy. If I just used 3 or 4 evenings out of my 7, I could have generated 15 hours a week or 64 hours a month to do something to progress our lives. That's a huge resource and a life-changing amount of time if applied to something worthwhile. You can invest time building something for your future or your financial independence and have plenty of time to have fun and enjoy life. But to spend some time in your 30s to build wealth or develop a growth mindset will change your life in your 50s. And it will do it in the most amazing way possible. And the best thing about that, it actually gets you financially prepared for your 50s and your retirement. And if you don't start in your 30s, eventually you will have to accept responsibility and start planning for your financial future and even your retirement. And to help, you can watch this video here, where I go over all the major milestones that I had to achieve before I hit my 50s. And there may be just a couple of surprises there too. I'll see you there.